skydiving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello, everybody, and my fellow trudgers. This is Dion, and welcome to Raw Recovery, a Trudging Together podcast. Like I said, my name is Dion Miller. I'm going to be your host today. I'm so glad to be back with podcasting. You're going to be seeing us every Friday night here on Raw Recovery, so keep looking for it every week. Friday night live recovery. Today we've got a fantastic speaker, and she's going to be telling her story for the first time. That's what's great about Trudging Together. What we've done is we've created a safe space here for people to come and tell their stories, to be able to come and tell their stories. Sometimes it can be pretty arduous getting in front of, a couple hundred people and telling your story. So we have found another outlet for other people to do it. Today, I would like to introduce our guest, Ann, and welcome to Raw Recovery.
Thanks, Dion. I'm Ann. I'm an alcoholic. I have to start that off.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? You're already doing it. You know how this show works. It's not about Dion. It's about our guest. This is God's show. So I'm going to relinquish control now. And go ahead and get started. We are listening.
Thank you for having me. I think I want to start my story. I thought about this a little bit. I'm starting my story about what my story doesn't include.
Okay.
My story doesn't include a series of relapses or my family and friends begging me to quit drinking, nor I never had a realization that I was an alcoholic at any time during my active addiction. Just totally oblivious. My story doesn't include drinking at an excessively young age. I never partied with my parents, never partied with my friends' parents. I grew up pretty normal, many would say. I think I didn't have a lot of exposure to terrible experiences. But a lot really didn't know what was going on inside me, I guess. I always felt so lonely, unloved, ugly, self-image terrible, never good enough, scared of everything. I had very few friends. I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. And
yeah, I know. I can understand that feeling.
Was afraid to speak up in front of a group of people, even in a small group. I was exposed to alcohol all my life. I mean, it was something my family, everyone drank. I never saw any terrible people falling down drunk, or only one experience in my younger childhood where my mom asked me to go run out and get my dad come in for Christmas Eve. His aunt and uncle had arrived, and she wanted me to let him know. And I ran out into his workshop. He was a contractor, so he had like his own little building that and he was out there and laying in a pile of sawdust, kind of passed out. And I was like, oh boy. I didn't know.
Tired.
I was a young kid, so I was kind of scared.
Yeah.
And he was like, kind of, mumbling. I ran back in, told Mom. She went out, got him. That was not a good thing. Kind of pissed off. That's really probably the worst thing I ever saw involving alcohol.
It sounded like your parents were more social. It sounded like they just like to entertain.
Yeah, they, well, I wouldn't say they were excessively social. I think because my mom was kind of backwards. She forced herself to get a group of friends and start doing like card club once, and then they'd switch they'd have 5 or 6 couples, and that one day they'd have it at their house, the next day the other house,
Yeah.
whatever. But all those people would come over, and we'd be down there and eat some of the snacks, and people were drinking and stuff. They were playing cards.
Yeah.
We were shoot away, go to bed, whatever. But it was just like I never really saw anything to the extreme growing up like that. It was just I was really kind of a loner, and I was happy to be by myself in
Yeah.
my room, pretended like my mattress was a ship out at sea, and I
Oh,
was
heck yeah.
shipwrecked. And there, my little stuffed monkey, we were making it work. But stuff like that.
Hey, you got to have a good imagination when you're a loner.
I think I really had a good
Yeah,
imagination.
you gotta, or you're just gonna be bored and get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so I really do think I was born an alcoholic. When I look back,
Yeah.
if I'm honest, like I think my addiction tendency started at a really young age before I ever took alcohol
Sure.
at
Yeah.
all. Like I
Yep.
had issues with food, and
Okay.
I used food like I kind of used alcohol.
Okay.
My mom and dad were always like, you're getting a little chubby, you gotta watch what you're eating, the body image thing.
Yeah.
God, maybe you should exercise, maybe you should watch what you're eating. That's too much. You don't want to eat a second helping.
Mhm.
But finish what's on your plate.
There's that contradiction again.
But we weren't allowed a lot of treats and special things that, the things that tasted good. Like
Yeah.
the mom would make a big cache of chocolates and cookies for
Mhm.
Christmas and hide them up in the attic because I lived in Pennsylvania. It was
Yeah.
cold during the winter, so you didn't need the refrigerator. The attic, it was frozen.
Yeah.
So I'd find where she'd hide that stuff. I'd take a couple and I'd spread them out, make
Yeah.
it look like nothing's missing. Run down to the bedroom, have those. And I stole and hid food at a very young age. So that would be kind of alcoholic tendencies, I would think.
Yeah.
And
It sure is.
and just a lot of guilt surrounding food. Like I didn't, because my mom and dad were so rough with me on it.
Okay.
Really, looking back, I probably only realized, those were alcoholic tendencies.
Yeah.
Now, after I've been in the program, working the program, doing some therapy to deal with past traumas and experiences. So anyhow, that's pretty much my childhood and even my young teenage years up to graduation. When I graduated high school, I moved from Pittsburgh to Harrisburg, maybe a 4-hour drive,
Okay.
to go to school out there. And I lived on campus. Our little apartment had 5 other girls in it. We had like 3
Wow.
bedrooms, little kitchen area, and a couch that was kind of all
Okay.
together.
Yeah, it's a dorm. Yeah.
Yeah, so we each had a roommate, and my first experience in any kind of, I never even like in high school went to visit a college or a campus or anything. So I just got like spit out into this dorm environment.
Yeah.
And
Totally new experience. For
yeah,
you, including having friends, huh?
I was still very backward and
Yeah.
shy. And I kind of just delved myself into my studies.
Okay.
And I went to be a court reporter, which was one of the most difficult,
That's a tough job.
it was one of the most difficult choices in the programs that were offered at the business school I went to, which
Okay.
required the most studying, most time consuming
Okay.
homework and all that. And our classes started really, really early. Where
Did you
some of
do
the
that
other
on purpose?
Did I wanted to be a court reporter on purpose?
Well, that's kind of a silly question.
Yes,
Um,
I did actually.
and was it because it consumed your time and because?
Oh God, no! I had no idea what to expect.
Okay. All right.
With the course, I mean, they just said it's one of the hardest courses.
Okay.
But it's something like kind of interests me, and I thought I was always like real good with my hands. I played the piano. I was a great typist, and I thought that would be probably something I could do good at. And I would get to hear court cases and stuff,
That would be neat. I would love that too.
yeah. So I went through that, and right away it was like a party environment. All the pretty girls were flirting with the guys, and
Yep.
they were going to the parties on campus. And I never really got into that. I probably went to a couple parties and I probably drank, but I don't remember having like a lot of fun. I just remember it being awkward.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get stuck in that right away.
Yeah.
And even though I wasn't partying, I was studying my ass off, I still, after my second semester, I almost didn't meet my grade point average. They had a real high standard you had to
Okay.
meet. And I had to sit out for a semester. My mom and dad had to come out and move all my furniture and stuff back home. And I
Wow.
sat out for like 3, 4 months. And they said, really think about if this is what you want to do, because
Okay.
you have to get this grade point average. If you don't get it, you're going to fail.
It'll pass. Yeah.
So I got a job at Burger King, and then I started kind of dating a guy from Burger King that I worked with, and I was
Okay.
staying out late, and I was kind of drinking. I wasn't 21 yet, but it wasn't, and I was having sex and
Mm.
being promiscuous, and my parents definitely weren't happy. But then I went back to school. I
Yeah.
graduated, made it through,
Okay.
got a job as a court reporter, and I was very young as a professional,
Yeah.
and
We went,
um,
23,
no,
22?
I don't even think because I graduated 17. I went to school 18, and it was like a
You weren't even
2 year,
legal age to drink yet.
no, probably just around there.
Okay.
And I was working as a court reporter. I was working with attorneys, doctors,
Yeah.
I was very shy. It was an
That's why you were the
experience.
court reporter. They don't talk. Sometimes
Well,
they read
they
it back.
do. You have to speak up if somebody's talking too fast and you're not getting it. You got to say, "Hey."
Okay. All
I
right.
wasn't saying, "Hey." I was requiring or depending on my cassette recorder that I had running in the background. If
Okay.
I didn't understand something someone said, I was hoping I could get it later,
Yeah.
and if they could stop you anytime and say, "Hey, can you if they testified about something an hour ago, and then it came up again an hour later, and there was dispute on exactly what was said,"
Yep. You
they
got
could
to
say,
go back
"Hey,
there.
go back and find that."
Yeah.
The court reporting, it was like little paper like
Yeah.
this,
It's a
but it's
little
stacked
ticker
up like
tape thing.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to go through and try and find what they said an hour ago. It was
That's pretty challenging.
you're under a lot of pressure. But anyhow, that schedule for that job was like perfect for me, and it really, really got me even deeper into the partying
Okay.
atmosphere, because I only went and took a job maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I had to transcribe, and it wasn't like a whole day. It was
Yeah.
some things you would just be there an hour.
Yeah.
You drove
Okay.
to an attorney's office, you got set up in there, you'd take a testimony for an hour or two, and then
Okay.
you'd go home and you could transcribe it whenever you wanted.
Okay.
And we got paid once a month. I would just save all my notes from all my jobs for the whole month, and
Yeah.
then pull like 2 all-nighters
Yeah.
and right before my work was due to the office, and submit it, and I'd figure out how many pages that would be, how much I would get paid, what my paycheck was going to look like, how
Yeah.
much I would owe for them making copies and for sending it out to the attorneys. And so I kind of knew how much money I was going to bring in,
Okay.
and how much if it was going to be enough for me to make my bills, and I could just go out partying and stuff. And
Yeah.
so when it really got bad was when I did become 21, and I discovered all the bars. And I don't remember going to bars with friends and stuff. Maybe
Yeah.
one friend would go with me initially, But
Yeah.
after that, like once I was at that bar, I didn't have no problem going in there by myself.
Yep.
And I'd go into the bars by myself all the time. I ended up on pool leagues, flirting with
There
guys,
you are, the pool leagues.
promiscuous.
Yep.
It led to really one thing I never thought I'd tell people. I had probably 3 abortions, when I was very young. I
Okay.
never could have taken that back to my parents. Disappointment with my parents was the worst thing in my book.
Okay.
I never wanted to be that disappointment. And I was partying and I was away from home. They didn't know. And I was having fun.
Yeah.
And, I put myself in dangerous situations all the time, especially with different men. I had no idea who these people were.
Yeah.
I'd take them home to my house, and then the next thing I know, days later, they're pounding on my window outside. I'm calling the cops on them saying, I don't know who this
I
guy
don't
is.
know
He
who
must
this
have
guy
followed me
is.
home from the bar. Meanwhile, I had invited them there the day before. It was terrible, the lies. Yeah.
And it says in the big book that that we search out sordid places for companionship and approval.
Yeah.
And
Everyone I
that
was
really is the path of a loner.
sure. And
And I know
everyone
that because I was a loner.
everyone I was dealing with in my mind was lower than me. And it made
Yeah.
me feel better about myself.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then the alcohol obviously made me feel wonderful. And now I'm
Mhm.
social. I feel pretty.
I
People
hear
are
you.
paying
When I
attention
started
to me.
drinking, suddenly I was pretty. The girls wanted me.
Yeah.
It was weird. But then I think that had to do with the it has to do with self-confidence, I think.
But I never viewed that as a terrible thing or a bad thing. I never thought, oh my God, I have a problem here going on. I just continued that lifestyle, even though it got so bad when I was probably in Harrisburg working as a court reporter for about 8 years. And after 8 years of partying in the bars, you meet a lot of people that you click with. It just become friends that you hang out with at the bars, that come back to your house and party with you later. And I tinkered it with some cocaine and some pot. Like I was a pretty big pothead.
Okay.
But we had friends. We'd do that, coke and pot, and mostly it was drinking.
Mhm.
And the worst, where it came to an end, where my Harrisburg and my career that I worked so hard to be and felt so great and proud of came to an end was when the partying just was out of control. And
Yeah.
I knew I had a job the next day. It was later in the morning, and I thought, well, geez, I was in my early 20s. I could party all night and get up and go to work.
Yeah, no problem.
But we were just, doing coke the night, and there's maybe 5 of us in my apartment partying and doing coke. You're doing coke, you're up.
Yep.
I never wanted to go to sleep. When I did finally crash, I crashed.
Yeah.
And I slept through my alarm. I woke up to my phone ringing. I didn't answer my phone because I was like, what's going on? Where am I at? I mean, I knew where I was at. I was at my house. I was in bed.
Yeah, but what's going
But
on?
I'm like, shit, what time is it? And then I hear my answer machine come on. It's my office. Anne Marie, they're looking for you at your job. Never answered the phone.
Yeah.
Popped out of bed. Ran into the bathroom like, I'm going to get ready real quick. But the job was only like a mile away, right down the road.
Yeah.
Throw on, a business suit. Brush my teeth. Slap some makeup on. I looked in the mirror. I said, there's no way I'm going anywhere. There's no way I could cover up what the hell I was looking like right then. Yeah. And I was afraid. I was scared. I didn't call my office. I never called them. I never said, I'm not going to show up to that job. I never made up an excuse. I never lied. I just didn't call. Okay. And I was scared all day into the night. I didn't know what to do, And I came up with this story. I'm just going to call my office and tell them I'm having a nervous breakdown. I called my dad. I said,
Yeah.
Dad, I got to come home. He's like, okay, well, make arrangements, come home for the weekend. It's like,
Yeah.
no, Dad, I need to come home. I need
Yeah.
you to come out, drive out here with your pickup. Maybe bring Mark, my brother, with his pickup. I need you to pack up this house. I need to move home.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I even told him, but I called my office, told him I'm having a nervous breakdown. My dad's going to come get me. I'm not going to be coming back to work.
Yeah.
They made sure they talked to my dad to make sure I was okay, and I really was going to go home. Yes,
Yeah.
all true. Going home. So, moved home. Ruined everything, my job, starting over.
Yeah.
Worked in a grocery store just to make some bucks.
Yeah.
Interviewing, trying to get another job as a court reporter. Couldn't get one, couldn't find one. Went into a temp agency, started working as a temp in, professional offices.
Yeah.
Still drinking like crazy, partying. Eventually I got my permanent job, which I'm still in now. I work there 25. I'll celebrate 25 years this year.
Oh,
And
good for you.
yeah, and really it had to be God that drove me there and landed that job in my it at first, I was still partying like crazy, drinking and
Yeah.
doing pot, and I every once in a while coke, but eventually in that job they bring random drug tests.
Yep.
And they took your hair. So
Ooh.
definitely at
Yep.
that point, I'm like, okay, I just can't touch any drugs. Well, drugs weren't my problem. It wasn't my problem. Drugs wasn't my problem. It was the drinking.
Yeah, it was the alcohol.
Yeah, and I was drinking and I was bartending part-time, and it just was all just fit in like a glove, my life. I made it to work every day, Monday through Friday. I didn't drink. Friday, all gloves. The gloves are off, man. Binge drinking Friday, Saturday. Drank till blackout. I blacked out, still promiscuous, picking up guys. Had my own place at that time. Just crazy. And, it was all fun though, still. Everything was fun.
Yeah.
Every single person I knew drank. They did the same thing. I didn't know anybody who didn't drink.
Yeah.
I was in that lifestyle. And I just did that lifestyle until I never got married. I had some serious boyfriends along the way after 1 or 2, maybe 3 years if it got to that point.
Yeah.
It was too much for me. As soon as it started to get serious, and I couldn't really be intimate, truthfully intimate. It was, I just
for me towards the end when I was dating, I would tell people I was dating, I know I'm an alcoholic. I know I drink too much, and if you try and change me, I'll kick you the curb.
I didn't even know that.
And I would tell them that.
I still didn't know that. I still did not know. And eventually, I was in my 50s. And I happened to run into my ex-boyfriend, my very first boyfriend, when I was 16 years old. And when I was moving away to Harrisburg, we just kind of broke things off. We said, this is not going to become anything serious. I'm going to be living far away. He was maybe 3 years older than me. I was just 16, 17.
Yeah.
And so we broke that off late, in my 50s, maybe 49, 50 years old. Out of the woodwork, here he comes. His nephew's reaching out to me on Facebook. Are you blah, 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 and did you date blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, oh, my God, yeah. Man, I love that guy. He was my first in many ways. And it broke my heart when we broke up.
Yeah.
And I had to move away. And I got over him. But I was like, wow, just out of the blue, I said, this has to be meant to be. So we got into contact and we started talking, and next thing you know, we're in love.
Yeah.
He's moving into my house. 2 years later, we're getting married. The month after we got married, the pandemic hit.
Ooh, okay.
Immediately, I started working from home.
Yeah.
He was still going to work. He eventually started to work for my brother.
Okay.
So they become real close. I'm drinking, we're drinking. That's what we do. We
Okay.
drink together. We have people. We didn't really go out drinking a lot. We drank at home, and we'd have
Yeah.
friends come over and party with us
Yeah.
at our house. And
Cheaper and safer.
it got bad.
Yeah.
I remember we went out for New Year's Eve. I got so drunk, and it was snowy and icy, and he drove
Ooh.
us home, and I got out of the truck and fell down and slid right under the vehicle.
Oh.
And he's trying to pull me out, and I was dead weight. I wasn't even helping
You
to
were
try to get off the ground. I'm laying there like, just let me be. I'll be fine. And I was getting so drunk like that. And eventually, after we were married for a couple of years, it just became like, I knew I shouldn't have got married.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy. Then I was extra critical, judgy, and mean to my husband. And
Yeah.
I just would live to get up. I never drank when I worked during my hours at home.
Okay.
Ever. I had some kind of responsibility that I was not going to drink while I was working. But 5 o'clock, damn it, I was moving my ass from in front of my computer right over to my couch in front of my TV, and that box of wine come out. And I didn't stop the wine until I passed out, went to sleep, got over and did that over and over and over and over again. I somehow went from drinking just on Fridays and Saturdays to, okay, including Sundays, and then, okay, now I'm drinking every day.
Yeah.
And
it was so easy for you too with the pandemic and working at home.
I started drinking daily before that pandemic, but I still was, making it to work every day. I had to drive, get up early, go to work. I still was doing that, but I was drinking every day. And it was wine that got me starting the everyday thing.
Okay.
I don't even know why, because I hated wine, but now I started drinking a sweet wine, and then that was like too sweet. Let's go to something a little bit more tart. Oh, that's still too sweet. Next thing you know, I'm drinking like the most like Chardonnays and Pinots that were like, the first drink you'd go, oh. And it wasn't just a sip. I was drinking
it was a drink.
So eventually, it got to the point where I had so much anger in my marriage. We were fighting, yelling, name calling, and the anger became so much that I knew I really wanted to physically hurt him.
Oh.
And I was like, I have to, something's going on. And probably a couple years before that, I had gone to the doctors.
Okay.
I always went to the doctor every year, got a physical, and she did my blood work and said, your liver function's a little strange. Yeah. I'm going to send you to go get an MRI or a CAT scan, whatever the heck it was, sonogram. And I just ignored that,
Yeah, you wouldn't. I didn't go either. Yeah.
I never went. And so then the next year came, and I went in for my appointment, and the blood work, my liver function was a little bit worse, and she was concerned, it's really not a little bit worse, it's probably a lot worse in a year's time. Yeah. And she said, you really need to, how about, abstain from alcohol? And I was like, excuse me.
You thought she told you a joke.
Getting over a freaking cold here, so you have to excuse that. But you know what I abstained from? I abstained from going to see that doctor.
That's right.
I abstained from answering any phone call that came from that doctor. I abstained from taking any freaking prescription medication that blood pressure, Prozac for depression, and cholesterol.
Oh.
just stopped taking anything.
Yeah.
And just drank. I knew at that point I pretty much was going to die from
Yeah.
drinking, and I didn't care.
You didn't care.
Loved drinking.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give that up for anything. Then came the anger issues with my husband, and I realized
Okay.
I got to quit this. So I got to quit it. And I said, I'm going to get a divorce and I'm going to go to detox. Boom. All at the same time.
Yeah.
I made arrangements to take myself to detox. I got a new doctor. We
Okay.
talked about going to detox.
Yeah.
And my new doctor, I liked a lot better than my old doctor. She didn't treat me like I was a child.
Okay.
And
That
so
can make a big difference.
oh yeah, and we
It
seriously
really
talked about
can. Yeah.
alcoholism, and I wasn't ready. I still wasn't ready.
Okay.
And and the fighting continued. And one day, like, I got up, we were sleeping in separate bedrooms, and he stuck his head in my bedroom and screamed at me. And I got out of my bed and I ran to his door and I slammed it like 15 freaking times as hard as I could. And I just had this anger coming out of me.
Yeah.
So I said, I called, made arrangements finally to go into detox. I made arrangements that I wouldn't have to go into the inpatient. I could just do the detox and then go home and do an outpatient.
Okay.
So I did that scared to death. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I detoxed. Felt a lot better right away, but just scared. So much emotion. Like, I never had felt emotion for 25 years.
Yeah.
Even younger. I mean, I think we didn't show a lot of emotion growing
Yeah.
up.
We weren't allowed to.
No, and like, I mean, my mom and dad, and we never even said I love you. Like, we never said I
No.
love you. I probably was, late 30s before we were saying I love you. And it was weird. Like, it felt weird to even say that. But so went to detox, came out, told my husband before, I'm going to detox. I'll be gone maybe 5 days, and I'm filing for divorce.
Okay.
And that was it. I drove myself. He wasn't there to support me for any of that.
Yeah.
I came home, I contacted my attorney, and filed for divorce,
Wow.
and immediately started going to AA and learning about AA. Even though I went to detox,
Yeah.
I did not think to myself, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm just having problems with drinking, and I don't know.
It's a phase.
I never really had withdrawals, but I never drank. I was drinking every day. Like, I never went any period of time.
Yeah. In order to get withdrawals, you gotta kind of stop.
But I never even, like, in the morning got up shaky. The worst I noticed was I was having my signature, like, I couldn't write. I couldn't print. I couldn't. If my writing was so uncontrolled, it was sloppy. And even if I tried to make it nice and neat, it wouldn't come out neat. So the alcohol was affecting me. And my doctor said, you should quit under observation, because if you go through withdrawals, it can kill you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I would or not. So I said, okay, I'll go to detox. I'll just be there, and they'll help me if I have withdrawals. They'll give me meds so it's not as terrible.
Yeah.
And I'll get through this. If I can get through 4 and 5 days of not drinking, I can maintain that, So I came out. I went to the day I came home, I was at an AA meeting that night. I didn't know anybody. I went myself. I didn't know, scared. Almost every AA meeting, I would end up crying. I was crying all the time. Next thing you know, I'm carrying Kleenex in my car. I never knew when the fountain was going to start.
Yep.
what would spur it
What
on.
would start it?
And it was
Don't
like,
say hi to me.
I
I
know.
was like that too. I was very sensitive when I first came to the program. Very sensitive.
In IOP, every time I talked, I'd cry.
Yep.
It was terrible. I was the older lady in IOP that always cried.
You know, we pent up these emotions for years. And once it starts, it's hard to turn it off. Once you become aware, it really is hard to turn off.
So it turned into every time, like the crying. I had went off my Prozac, like I said before. So I had a stash of Prozac still, which was old. I became my own doctor. I said, I'm just going to start taking my Prozac again. Maybe it's because I'm just depressed, you know. And I called my doctor. I said, I'm taking Prozac again. It seems to be making me feel better. I'm not crying near as much, but I was still emotional. But then it became, I was so aware of every emotion. I tried to figure out why I was having the emotion and digging into it. So after IOP, which lasted 3 months, I started seeing therapists regularly. The AA, started going to AA. I had to feel my way through AA. It was all in-person meetings. It wasn't working for me. I had people who were real needy hanging on to me, and I wasn't even sure what I was doing yet. You know, I needed to be, I guess, more selfish and just work on me. So I started pushing people away that were like kind of needing me. I needed me. And
so
I didn't
wanted to be a person that was, you know, worth having or being able to come to and be reliable. And you weren't there yet, is what you were saying.
I didn't need another responsibility for another person. It turns out, you know, I've been a caretaker all my life. I never knew. And that's where I'm nice to the person at first, but now I'm realizing there's boundaries. Ooh, who knew there was ever a boundary? Ever, you know? So going through the AA, I'm learning, like Amy listening, I'm learning. I'm a sponge. I started to experiment with the Zoom meetings. Just the basic beginner meetings. Sitting in the background, not really sharing. If I shared, it was real short and sweet. And it always had something to do with whatever someone else was talking about that I already had experienced. I didn't experience a lot at that time because everything was so new. I never knew about AA. I never went to AA. I never relapsed. Never. I will knock on wood to this day. I never say never, but I didn't have the same experience that a lot of people did with the being in and out and coming back and trying over and over again.
And the hard home life and a hard religious background.
No, and there was very little religion in my life. So
I did notice one thing. Your parents never told you they loved you. And I think that had your parents didn't hug you. They probably, and I'm guessing, and that had an effect on you.
No, there was not a lot of touchy-feely hugs. Like you'd hug, but it was like real quick, and it wasn't a hug. Like you got a bear hug. You could feel the love. It was just like a hug, like just to show, like for show, kind of. Even if there weren't other people watching, it was still just kind of like, you know, obviously through this whole process, I've learned about, you know, my mom and dad's past and how they were raised, which, you know, folds over into our lives. So it's just stuff I need to learn to deal with and accept and forgive. So
and that's a great attitude to have, because we got to get to a point in our lives where we don't we got to stop blaming our parents for who we are.
That's right.
Take responsibility for our own actions.
Sure.
They did the best that they could. My parents did.
Yep. And that's what they did. You know, they did the best. And my mom, unfortunately, she's passed in about 4 years. So she's not seen me going through this process at all or getting to this point. My dad's still around. So every once in a while, I'll ask him, you know, like about his childhood. And I want to see like why this is and why this happened.
Yeah.
He's been more than open with me about, he never realized, like when I bring things up to him, he never realized
Yeah.
what they were doing was harmful in any way to us.
Exactly.
And
That, you know, naive is not a bad word. And that's what they were, naive. They didn't know. Like my parents didn't know. They took the advice of Phil Donahue, and it was wrong.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you, Phil Donahue. Yeah. He was actually on my first 4-step.
As a resentment? Or
yeah,
did you
he came
owe
up
him
with tough love. He was the tough love promoter.
Oh, okay. Because he made your parents.
My parents thought they knew what tough love, and they tough loved me.
And you think Phil made them do that?
Yeah, they took his advice.
That's funny.
Silly stuff.
No, I know, but it's crazy where we get these ideas, and we all have ideas that are similar.
Yeah.
It's insanity where, you know, that comes with being out.
It's just like a lot of people listen to Dr. Oz today. It's not any different.
No.
Going with the changes.
And Dr. Phil was one of my favorites for a long time.
Dr. Phil is awesome.
I love Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
But I don't watch
He's one of the
any
good
TV
ones.
now since I quit drinking.
You know, I don't watch. Yeah.
My responsibilities and interests have changed dramatically. And
yeah, I bet. What's it like?
It's great. I'm really happy where I'm at. And the program, I have to say, saved my life. I never felt that my life was in immediate jeopardy. Yeah. But I did, you know, think eventually I was going to die from cirrhosis of the liver or something, because I wasn't willing to quit drinking ever, you know. And after that, like within 3 months of being sober, I had my blood work done again, and my liver went back to normal functioning.
It does.
I was Good job. So happy to hear that.
Congratulate. I remember getting that news. I was like, because I was yellow, I was jaundice.
Yeah.
I was this, man, scary.
Yeah.
I don't have another recovery in me. There's no way I could make it back. My body, it'll just shut down.
Like, I wonder how fast the liver would go if we would start drinking again. Like, would it just like immediately, or would it have to work up to it again? Just like progression.
It might take a couple of months, but it won't take long. No.
Yeah, not like the initial.
It heals, but it doesn't become fully functional again. I mean, there's
some of it if there's
irreparable damage, but it's still usable.
Yeah. Well, thank God anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so going through the steps have been, I went through them slowly because it was such a learning experience. Yeah. And I really didn't think, like, do I really need to do those steps? Like, I didn't even know what they really entailed. So it wasn't like I was trying to avoid anything. I didn't know what it was. And maybe I was trying to avoid the fact that I would be moving towards something I didn't know what it was, which is fear. You know,
it is.
It's fear. So you tend to stick with what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And even though I wasn't drinking, which I was very comfortable with, I've still had a comfort zone there that everything was changing because I quit drinking.
Yeah.
So I was like still trying to just get comfortable with that. And I didn't want to take on another thing that was uncomfortable. But eventually, through the Zoom meetings, I started, you know, talking, developing fellowship with certain people.
Yeah,
we were exchanging numbers.
I bet your friendships are different now too.
Absolutely. All my friendships. Like, I think it happened that I isolated myself through the pandemic and the drinking. That's when everything became so terrible, and I quit bartending because of that.
Yeah.
And no one came around. All my friends were drinkers. And some people didn't come around because of the pandemic. And some people, you know, they're drinking too. That's all they're worried about, selfish drinking. And I wasn't inserting myself in their life. They had no reason to seek me out. Yeah. So all of those ties for 3 to 4 years were broken. Yeah. And I was able to start fresh in the friendship category and meet, you know, choose my friends more cognizantly,
Yeah, cognitive, exactly.
and
And
smartly
yeah,
and say, I don't want this drama and I don't really want to be around people who are drinking. And
not really.
so meeting my friends slowly, I mean, it took a while to meet people in person, but I have a handful of friends now that I've met in person since I've quit drinking that, we're developing our relationships.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with those, the
yeah.
progress of
That, yeah,
those.
because it feels natural. I mean, I'm 52 and I'm just figuring out what friendship's all about, you know?
Yeah. And the
And
progress
that's
is slow.
okay.
It's a slow progress, but it's a comfortable. I
Yeah,
don't feel overwhelmed,
it's a comfortable pace. I
and,
like that.
and I don't feel these people are like needing me, and I'm not needing them. We're there to
It's not
support each
toxic.
other equally, you
Yeah.
know.
Now my friends are like, hey, why'd you put that on Facebook? I suggest you take it down, dumbass. Yeah. Those are my friends now.
Oh, I used to
My
tell my husband
my
that
friends
all
call me
the
up. They're like, Dion, you're too comfortable on your program, so I'm calling to make you uncomfortable.
time.
What?
So
But
yeah,
it's true. It's true.
it's been quite a journey, and I'm glad I'm on it, and every
Me
day I
too.
learn more and I grow more, and I want to learn more. And going through the steps, just briefly, the biggest hurdles for me was the spirituality,
Okay.
coming to um, believe in some and turn over my life. Like, it seems so extreme. I'm like, how the hell
Doesn't
am I
it?
just not gonna take control of my
Yeah.
life and
But
just let what happens happens?
it's not as extreme as we make it in our head,
It's
though.
not. And the more I thought about it, and then the more perspectives I got from many other people, it came to me that if you just have the willingness to believe something out there is greater than you, of
Yep.
course. How did this all get here? There's somebody, like, I'm not going to
Something
go out
happened.
there and create the earth in
Yeah.
the sky. Something had to do that. That's something greater than me.
Yep.
I absolutely believe that's there. Um, so I was able to move forward on that preface, and
Yeah.
then get the awakening came slower. Then I wanted that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking for something to show me.
Yeah.
I want to see, like, one day, as silly as it was, there was a reflection on my ceiling. And I kept looking at it. And this is when I was seeking God
Sure.
every day for a period of time, and I really wasn't feeling like I was getting what I needed. And I
Yeah.
see this reflection, and I look around, I'm like, I've no, all my curtains are drawn. The sun's not even really out. I don't have any really lights on that would be causing this reflection. I
Right.
go get my ladder. I'm climbing up the ladder. I'm touching this reflection. I'm like, okay, there's my hand is creating a shadow. And I'm like bringing my hand down, trying to figure out where it's coming from. Do you know I had put a candle on my countertop that was never there before, and it had a silver lid?
Ah.
And the light from my kitchen, which was way off to the distance, was
Yeah.
somehow catching that and making that reflection. Did I feel stupid? I
That,
thought that was
but
my
that doesn't
sign.
mean it wasn't a sign from
No,
God.
it was a sign.
Yeah.
And then I found my sponsor through Zoom, and it just fell in my lap. Like, I didn't even want to get a sponsor. I'm like, I don't need a sponsor. I'm not doing these steps. And one of the friends I developed developed a chat relationship with over Zoom. She lived in PA, kind of where I was at while I was in school and losing my job, ruining my profession. We started chatting, and she said, "Oh man, I got a sponsor." And then somebody who comes to this meeting we always go to. I was like, "Are you serious?" And she said, "Yeah, we're going to start reading a big book. And there's a couple other girls who are reading it too." And I said, "Oh, do you think you could ask her if I could join you guys?" And I wasn't even thinking it was going to be a sponsor thing. I just thought it would be a group of girls reading the
Yeah.
book, and she said, oh, absolutely, you can join. So I joined, and my sponsor, I loved her right away. Like, we clicked, and I could really relate. We basically just read, there were like 4 girls, and we weren't really getting into personal stuff. But when we came to
Mhm.
the 4th step, everyone started dropping off. And the next thing you know, it was just me and my sponsor moving forward in these steps, which I craved, the one-on-one
Yeah.
dealing
You
with
needed
somebody.
it. Your
I
inner
needed that.
child needed that.
I needed it, and I was able to really be open and honest completely. There's things I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have said in a group sitting that I
exactly.
could now be honest about. And
Mhm.
um, so we did our steps, just me and her.
Yeah.
And I got through those steps, and then it was, I need to give back.
Yeah.
And I was scared. I'm like, I'm not ready. Like, I have 6 and 3 weeks sobriety right now, and I probably
Mhm.
finished the steps when I had like 5 and some weeks sobriety. So maybe a
Yeah.
month went by where people were telling me, you need to start sponsoring people. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready. I just don't feel like I know that book. I don't know it inside and out. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I would be given someone the best of me to guide them through these steps. Like, I feel like I should give what I got, and
Yeah.
I felt like I got the best.
I understand that. Yeah.
So what I do now is I go to every book reading meeting I can go to, and read it over and over and over. And
Mhm.
the first time I read it, when I did the steps was the first time I read it. It probably went in one ear and right
Yeah,
out the other. And
sure.
I never really realized that.
Yeah.
Started reading it again. Next, I'm highlighting stuff. I'm making notes. Started reading it again. Now, bigger highlights, bigger notes. Like, every time I'm learning more and more. So now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start sponsoring, and
Good. Good for you.
I have somebody next week I'm gonna start with. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's an in-person person.
Yeah. And way to be honest with yourself, because sometimes we need to realize that maybe we're just not quite ready yet. So you went prepared yourself. The best way to learn something is to teach it. And when you become a sponsor and start teaching the program, the whole world changes.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to prepare for that. I don't feel like I was ready to I had a lot of problems. Um, I had anxiety attacks when I first came into the program. I was knocked out. I wasn't ready to help people till I was about 3.5 years sober.
Really.
Yeah.
See, and I think I know everybody's different, but
Yeah.
the people in my circle that I'm dealing with on Zoom, and like my sponsor and stuff like that, they're all like, they're saying, like, if you did your 12th step and you're not sponsoring somebody already, you're not really an alcoholic, and stuff like that. And
I don't
like,
know where that comes from.
that can't be true.
Yeah, there's nothing in the book that
If
says
something
that.
makes me, if I get a pit in my stomach over something, I have to now, like, I'm aware of these. Before
Yeah.
I drink it down. There isn't
Yep.
a pit in my stomach, but now I go, why do I have that? Why do I feel that way?
Yeah.
And I go, oh, because I've taken on too much. I'm
Yeah.
not ready for it. Let's cut out a couple little things here. And then I felt that way, like I'm not feeling right. And I pray to God, let me know when I'm ready. Guide me when I'm ready. Guide me through the steps. Be with me through the process. Make
Yeah.
sure I helping these people, and giving them the best I can through
But
you.
you're right. It says in the big book that sometimes this happens quickly,
Mhm.
sometimes it happens slowly. We say it in the meeting all the time.
Right. And then
You
somebody
know,
says to me that, whatever. But
I know, because some people they're like, "You've only been sober 5 months. You went through the steps." It's like, yes, people do. Bill W. did his steps in 2 days.
oh,
2 days.
well, he was only doing 6 back then, right?
No, he did all 12 in 2
Okay.
days, But yes, you're right. Good catch. Good catch. You do know your
I
stuff.
learned a little bit.
This has been fantastic.
And one other thing, like I want to just talk about
Absolutely.
God coincidences.
Okay.
Like you always say, oh, that's a coincidence. And then, and so many things, like when I did have my spiritual experience, it was just the realization that God's always been there, and I just never really noticed and realized what exactly it was talking to me and putting me in situations where it was perfect, and it grew me and propelled me along this path to my next step on the path. And now I can work with that. But the main thing is my new sponsee, who I'm really excited about starting with next week. She's the first person when I walked into my home group, the very first week I got out of detox, my second AA meeting ever, walked into that room and drew to her like a magnet. And sat down, we looked at each other, introduced ourselves, and really didn't say much after that, but just knew.
Didn't need to.
There was a connection between us, and that's done nothing but grow, grow, grow. And I just happened to do my steps before her, and she's like a month sober, longer than me, and she's not been ready to do her steps. And we talk, I mean, once a week or so. It's not like every day or anything, but she came to feeling that she's now ready, and she asked me. So I feel so good about that.
Yeah.
And just another thing, like she's going to help me even more while I'm helping her.
Yep. Being a sponsor is very fulfilling. It's very fulfilling because the dividends you get from it. What happens is you help these people, and then you start to live in a state of gratitude, and gratitude just becomes a way of life. Instead of just being a feeling, it's something you get for doing the work, and it'll be something entirely different than you've ever felt in your life. And I'm excited for
get ready. I'm ready.
Yeah. I think you're ready too.
Oh,
what a great story. And thank you.
You're welcome. I could talk about so much more, but it's just because I was an alcoholic for 25 years.
Yeah.
Well, I still am.
Yeah. Now, I always, you can always come back on. We can discuss topics and things like that. So keep that in mind. I always invite people to come on. I love talking about tough topics because they need to be talked about.
Yeah. So. And I just want to mention that you're a big part of my recovery as well.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so glad to have met you along the line.
I'm glad I met you too. The whole set of people. Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. And that's one thing that, and I appreciate the compliment. I really do. Well, folks, while I was listening to this, Anne kept telling us that, our story is a little bit different, and everybody's story is different. Here's the thing. There's going to be people out here that listen to this that go, Anne told my story. Yeah. Okay. Now our stories may be different, but we've all lost the same thing, and that is ourselves. And that's all we really need to lose in order to enter this program. I don't care about your age. I don't care about your sexual relations or your race. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to help you. Alcohol doesn't care, and neither do I. The only requirement is that you be a child of God, and for that, I will help you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This has been a Raw Recovery Trudging Together podcast. I love you. Peace out, and have a day.